little video for Math Antics, okay? Optional. You can learn it if you think you need the review, or you can wing it and wait till next week when we do it with positive and negative numbers. Speaking of positive and negative numbers, that's where we're going now. Okay, so we're going to move over to page 191. 191. Integer. Integer is a vocabulary word, right? You have seen it before. You learned it last year. An integer is any number that has no decimal or fraction parts, positive or negative, no fraction or decimal parts. Okay, it's officially the whole numbers and their opposites. Opposites being the negative numbers. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about this describing and listing examples. We'll kind of get through those. Okay. At the bottom of page 191, what is this thing?
What is what thing?
This box here, it's like randomly smashed in there. Okay, the bottom of a snowboarding half pipe is 5 meters below the top. 5 meters below the top at the bottom. What integer would you use to represent this position? Olivia?
-5.
-5.
Yay.
-5. Because below is typically means negative, below the 0 level, okay? What are some other places where we use negative numbers? What are some other places where we use negative numbers? Rachel. Okay, when you're comparing something to sea level, like a mountain is above sea level and then water depths below sea level might be represented by a negative number. Okay, that's a good one.
Temperature.
Temperature, that's a really common one, right? Because sometimes the temperature is below 0. So that same thing, right? Right? Oh my gosh, it's 5 below 0. It's -5 today. Why in the United States is -5 really cold? And in Europe, -5 is not really cold. Yeah, because they use a different temperature scale in everywhere except for the United States. Right? What temperature scale do we use in the United States?
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit, right? Fahrenheit. And Fahrenheit, what is the freezing point? What temperature does water freeze in Fahrenheit?
20 degrees.
32 degrees. 32 degrees Fahrenheit is the freezing temperature of water. What is the freezing temperature of water in Celsius?
0.
0. Right? So 0 degrees Celsius is the same temperature as 32 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's why if it's like 29 here, 29 Fahrenheit, in Europe, it's -2. So they have negative temperatures happen a lot in countries that use Celsius. Okay. Temperature, feet below zero. Okay, where else do we use positive and negative numbers? What other places in the real world do we use positive and negative numbers? Any guesses?
Money.
Money. Money. Taking money out of your bank account or adding money into your bank account. Sometimes you'll have a negative balance in your bank account. That means you owe money, right? What? What? What's a thing? Yeah, it's a bad thing. That means you owe money.
Mr. Wiley, I
Yes.
used to trick my brother and tell him I would pay him -$5 and then he would have to pay me $5.
Yeah, your brother's a smart guy, though. He wouldn't fall for that, would he? Or do you have a younger brother?
No, he didn't get it yet, but after a few tries, he actually figured out what I was meaning.
Okay. The other thing is like things that change over time, like the stock market will go up and down and you'll use negative numbers for those kind of things, just tracking things that gain or lose value. So lots of things, we'll talk about these. Representing things with negative numbers is very common, okay? And so being able to work with them, that's what this unit is about. Negative numbers are less than 0. Less than 0. Okay, the actual number gets bigger as you go more to the left. Okay, the number lines up on the board here. You should be able to graph any integer, if I tell you where's 3 on the number line, where's -5 on the number line, graphing it on the number line, something you should be able to do. Okay? Or deciding whether something is supposed to be a positive or negative number. So an average temperature of 5 degrees below the normal temperature would be -5. Below is a negative word. Rainfall 5 inches above normal, above is a positive word. Okay, so I probably should have had these covered up, but so above, increase in money, a deposit, that's when you put money into a bank account, so that's a positive word. Gain of, like, if you have something that gains value, that's a positive word. Profit is another money positive word. Profit means you make more money than you spend. That's a positive amount, okay? The opposites of all these are negative words. Below, 10 feet below the surface would be -10. A decrease in something. A withdrawal from your bank account. That's when you take money out. So a withdrawal is negative, a negative number. Or a loss, like something loses value. Under, take away, all those imply negative numbers.
This announcement, teachers, if you have not submitted attendance, please do so as soon as possible. Thank you.
You do not have to write a plus sign when you are writing positive integers. You can just write the number, okay? It's implied that it's positive, but if it's negative, then you have to put a minus sign in front, okay? So 2 inches below normal, the integer that represents that is -2. Yes?
What did you say for loss again? Like,
What does that mean?
yeah,
Like, say you had a stock that was worth $10 and now it's worth $8. Oh no, it lost value. So that loss is a -2.
does loss in family count as the same thing?
Well, if you were tracking the people in your family by numbers, like you had 10 people in your family and you lost one, that would be -1 person in your family. Okay, negative numbers are like subtraction, right? It's taking away.
But you have like negative amount of people.
Well, you can't really have a negative amount of people, not very easily. It depends on, I mean, you probably could come up with some situation, but, okay, there's an IXL topic that's just like this. Which number is right, a positive or negative? It's gonna be very quick, like a 2-minute IXL topic on do these situations need positive or negative numbers?
I'm gonna go check it out.
Don't check it out. Follow along here. Okay, you also need to be able to graph numbers on the number line. Okay, and this is helpful for figuring out which one is greater and which one is less, because the further you are to the right on the number line, the bigger the value, right? The greater the value is farther to the right. So 4, -6, and 0. 4 is to the right of 0. 0 is obviously at 0, also known as the origin, okay? And -6 is going to be 6 units to the left of 0. So graphing these points on the number line should be pretty simple. Where's -2 on the number line? Right there? No, why? What is this? +2, right? So there's -2, 8, that's 2 less than 10. And -7, go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay? So that's graphing points on the number line. Again, pretty straightforward. -4 to the left, because negative is to the left of 0. 10, 10, -3, and 7. Piece of cake, right? Yes, you do know. All right, the number line helps us understand absolute value. And I know you learned absolute value last year because my 6th grade people in intervention were working on absolute value last week. Okay? Absolute value is the size of the number. It doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. It's how far away from zero it is. It's just the number part, not worrying about whether it's positive or negative. Absolute value is the distance from zero. It's always positive. Always. The absolute value of a number is always positive. The absolute value of 5 is 5 because it's 5 units from zero. The absolute value of -5 is 5 because it is 5 units away from zero. It's not the opposite. It's always positive. Yes?
You said, 5 and -5 are 5 units away from zero,
Correct.
but if it's,
They're just going in opposite directions, but they're the same distance away,
but,
right? It doesn't matter what direction, it's just how far away it is. What is the size of the number? Okay? Absolute value is noted by straight lines. They look kind of like parentheses, but they're just straight lines around a number or around operations. You can have it around more than one thing too. And that means inside that if it comes out to a negative number inside those bars, the answer is positive. If it comes out to a positive number inside those absolute value bars, the answer is positive. So you should be able to evaluate what's the absolute value of -4. That's what this means. -4 is 4 units away from zero, so the answer is 4. You do not have to show any work for these. Okay, no work for this type. But if there's multiple things happening, like an order of operations kind of problem, then you have to show at least the steps of getting rid of the absolute value signs. So this one says the absolute value of -5 minus the absolute value of 2. The absolute value of -5 is 5. The absolute value of 2 is 2. You do inside these like they're parentheses. You do that first, then you do the subtraction. Okay? Absolute value bars are like parentheses. You do everything inside of them, then you take the absolute value. Absolute value can be used when you are traveling or moving distances and you want to know how far you went, regardless of which direction you were going. Okay? So this guy's climbing the mountain. He goes 30 feet up, and then he goes 22 feet down. How far did he go? How many feet did he climb? Well, you don't do +30 and -22 and say he only climbed 8 feet, because he actually went that whole time, right? So the absolute value of 30 is how far he went when he was going up. The absolute value of 22 is how much distance he covered when he was going down. You add those two things together. These are kind of silly, right? Most of the time you can just kind of figure it out without thinking about it as absolute value, but that's really what you're doing, right? If I asked you to run a mile to McDonald's and then run a mile back, you will not have run 0 miles, even though you ended up in the same place that you started. You ran 2 miles, right? Because a mile there and a mile back means you ran 2 miles, regardless of what distance it is. Okay? You're not hungry because it's too early in the morning. All right, so quick guided practice here. Problems 1 through 8 on page 194. Problems 1. What symbols do you have? Do you have thumbs ups? Can you do a thumb? You can only raise your hand. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I want you to raise your hand if you agree with me that number one is negative. Raise your hand. Is number 1 negative? Anyone raising your hand for number 1, a deposit of $16? Is that negative? You won't be able to move that because I'm presenting. And some people raise their hands. Is that what those little bloops are, or is that you?
That was a
No. Incorrect. A deposit is positive. Deposit is when you put money into an account. Okay, a deposit is when you put money into an account. So these words, deposit and withdraw, profit, loss, those are the ones that you might have trouble with because they're vocabulary that you maybe didn't know. A loss of 11 yards, is that negative? Raise your hand if a loss of 11 yards is negative. Can I see people raising their hands there? Oh, there they are. I can see it. Beautiful. Raise your hands, people. Raise them high.
Yeah.
Digitally, raise your hands. Campbell has raised his hand. John Carlos, did you raise your hand? Who doesn't have their hand raised there, Olivia? Miles?
Ron doesn't, and I can't tell if that's Kathy, do you have your hand?
Wait, what am I supposed to do?
Raise your hand if number 2 is negative,
And Aiden doesn't have.
right?
His hand.
And of course it is negative because a loss is negative, so negative 11. 6 degrees below 0, negative. Okay, thank you, Olivia. The absolute value of negative 9 is 9. It's always positive.
I don't know.
Absolute value of 18 minus the absolute value of 10. Do the absolute values first,
Wait, what?
and you get 8. 18 minus 10.
Oh.
This one, 11 minus 6, because the absolute values of these numbers are positive. So that one is 5. And your numbers on the number line, your points on the number line, everyone is 2. So 5 would be halfway between -4 and -6, right? 11, positive 11 is halfway between 10 and 12
Why is there no -5 on the number line?
because it's every 2 numbers. So you have to go in between, halfway in between 4 and 6 would be 5.